We're joined by Mr. Yasir Masoud, a geostrategic analyst and political commentator, joining us from Beijing. Thank you for being with us.
A very good morning from Beijing, and thank you very much for having me.
Our pleasure. Sir Yasir Masoud, from a mediation standpoint, what does this immediate return to violence point to? We were expecting things to calm down just yesterday night, and in the morning we see that the Israelis chose violence again.
Yes, I think it's a very sad news coming from Israel again, because since yesterday, I think it was a historic moment for Pakistan to broker a peace deal in such a tight situation. I would like to call it as it was no less than walking on eggshells, the way Pakistan has relied itself as a honest and neutral broker between Iran and United States of America. But as you know, that when it comes to ceasefires, Zionist policies of Netanyahu have been carried on, and I think he is the real spoiler in this truce. And for me, I'm really shocked because since yesterday, even President Donald Trump thoroughly agreed on the 10 points deal which came from Iran. And I think Lebanon was mentioned by our Prime Minister of Pakistan, Shehbaz Sharif, and President Donald Trump agreed to it. Then suddenly, now the news is coming from Washington that Lebanon was not included in it, which reflects that it's not only fragile, but there are other intentions, and that could again be horrendous for the regional diplomacy and peace. And I think at this point, I'm sure that Pakistan will yet again will carry on its efforts for peace and diplomacy, which it has shown to the world since yesterday.
Mr. Masoud, we have seen 254 deaths just after, again, the ceasefire was agreed upon by Israel, the US, and Iran. And so how is this going to affect the diplomatic track that is currently still ongoing? Because Friday is supposed to be the day where there will be direct negotiations between the US and Iran for the first time.
Yes, I think this is extremely sad that it is emanating from the Zionist, the apartheid state against Lebanon. And this is probably one of the most horrendous attack which came from Israel against the innocent people of Lebanon. It's such a barbaric and lunatic, I would say, attitude, because you see, now this is the time when the world has to put their acts together, and they need to put their heads together as well, because right now, the whole stability and security of the world is at stake. And I think the way Pakistan has achieved this milestone, there are states like UAE, for that matter, which is hand in glove with the Zionist policies of Israel. I think right now there are still efforts going on part of Pakistan, because even yesterday, this was probably the last and least window of opportunity which Pakistan has opened for the United States and as well as for Iran. Because as we know of that, United States wanted an off-ramp, which Pakistan provided to President Donald Trump because of the quagmire of its own making on the instructions and policies of Netanyahu. And then it also was a win-win for Iran as well, because they delivered victory for its own people. And President Donald Trump offered a sort of victory for its own domestic consumption. But then again, backing off from their own words means that it's a big dent on the diplomatic efforts which Pakistan tried and tested. But I think there is still some time. And let's see, because the Islamabad Accord or Islamabad talks have already been scheduled for 10th of April. If positive news doesn't come out of this, then I think Iran will be pushed to break this ceasefire and then we can have some sort of aggression again in the region, which will definitely impact the global economic fallout because of the Strait of Hormuz. Right now, more than 1.5 million people displaced in Iran. There are about 1.2 million people displaced in Lebanon. So, for how long this kind of repressive policies will carry on? The world now has to realize that such radicals like Netanyahu and wackos, they are destabilizing the world peace. And I think this is the time where world has to unite and do something about it.
Pakistan is the credits for mediating in the conflict. Mr. Masood, Pakistan is currently acting as a bridge between these narratives. Are they facing any limitations? How is it working?
Well, actually, let me tell you first that this wasn't an easy task at all. And as my panelists just mentioned, the historic rapprochement between United States of America and China in 1971 that was also brokered by Pakistan, and one of the finest rapprochement in international relations, which opened the doors for China and as well as for the US. So Pakistanis have done that in the past and has done it yet again. Why? Because if you see in this conflict, Pakistan has played very sagaciously and played its cards very wisely. Not because that Pakistan was taking any side, but the trust which they have built, especially after the major shift which occurred after the May 2025 conflict with India, that has actually uplifted Pakistan's geopolitical profile. And right now, big powers like United States of America, China, and Russia, they see Islamabad as a trusted partner, despite the fact that we have a security pact with the Saudi Arabia. But Pakistan time and again convinced the Gulf states, including Saudi Arabia, not to jump into this war because that's what actually Netanyahu wanted, so that the whole Gulf states, they can be destroyed. And let me also tell you that with this kind of maniacal pursuit of greater Israel, Netanyahu wants to further destabilize the region. On the other hand, I think it was the prime responsibility of America to control Israel. But I think there has to be a broad-based consensus now from the consortium of these regional partners like Saudi Arabia and Oman and Egypt and Turkey, including Pakistan. I think they should approach United States of America again, as well as Iran, to have a restraint and let the diplomacy run its course for the regional and global peace.
Talking about China's dimension, perhaps with you, Mr. Masood, is China indirectly shaping this current mediation through its relationship with Pakistan?
Well, yes, absolutely. And China last week, when Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister Ishaq Dar visited Beijing, and Beijing officially and categorically backed Pakistan in its tremendous efforts of bringing peace and stability in the region. When Ishaq Dar visited and met with Mr. Wang Yi, they came up with 5 points peace initiative for this region. Yes. And I think China also knows this as a matter of fact, that now it's a new reality of multipolar world order. And I think regardless of whatever the situation is, two middle powers, I would say Iran and Pakistan, they have emerged as credible partners, both militarily and as well as diplomatically, along with Russia and China. So I think Chinese know this as a matter of fact, that there is only way the peace and prosperity is to have diplomacy and dialogue. Let's see that the sanity prevail. Otherwise, we are still in for a sort of a conflict which will definitely have its spillover effects and its implications beyond imagination.
Maybe, Mr. Masoud, we have seen that Iran today, a couple of hours ago, they have said that they closed the Strait of Hormuz in response to the strikes and attacks on Iran, and so we can say that they're using the Strait of Hormuz as a leverage in the negotiations.
Iran has been using Strait of Hormuz for a leverage and for pressure against the Gulf states and as well as against Israel and even against United States of America, so that they can reach to a sort of a logical conclusion. Let me tell you that what has actually changed of this conflict when we talk about the multipolar reality. One thing which has shifted is that the consultations, the negotiations came into the hands of the legitimate stakeholders of this region. Today, Pakistan, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and China, they are trying their best for efforts. We don't see any single hegemon and outsider dictating and deciding the fate of the Arab states. These are the real stakeholders. Second, the China as a emerging multipolar superpower has the sway and clout, especially when it comes to Iran. The only entity who could guarantee this talk is indeed China. When we talk about China's relations with Iran in terms of its strategic relations, in terms of its economic relations because of the Strait of Hormuz, and in terms of its military relations with Iran. This is the second reality which emerged out of this conflict. The third, only Pakistan could do it because it has time-tested relationship with China over the years. So Pakistan again was the right candidate to convince China for its support and for its guarantee. Now, coming to your question, Strait of Hormuz is being announced that Iran will close it again. I think this is the right move on parts of Iran because what sort of options Iran is left with when it comes to have a pressure tactics? I think these are some structural problems which must be resolved in order to have an enduring and long-lasting stability. Right now, we need de-escalation in this region. And I think these structural problems can be discussed in phased manner later. But whether it will happen or not, it's $1 million question at the moment.
$1 million question.